Wesh! Regarde, ils sont en train de cramer, ils sont en train de mourir. Ils sont en train de cramer, promis.
This is the moment the fire broke out. Watch as within seconds it spreads across the ceiling. The Constellation bar was packed and then panicked with a terrifying scramble to escape.
It's a stunning image, the moment that Swiss officials say the deadly fire ignited inside a ski resort basement bar. You see there as staff hold champagne bottles with sparklers, all within a tightly packed crowd, and just above them, sparks igniting the flames in the ceiling.
It's past midnight in the Constellation Bar. The party in the basement is in full swing. This time of year, the Swiss ski town doubles in population, and many young people came here to ring in the new year. Astonishingly, when the roof catches fire, the party doesn't stop, and the sing-along gets louder.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Fireworks are traditional around this time of year, but it's always a recipe for disaster somewhere. This time, that somewhere was somewhere very unexpected, the dreamy fairy tale setting of Crans, Montana, in southern Switzerland. Pyrotechnics in the hands of amateurs late at night, indoors, while under the influence. What could go wrong? Well, in this case, scores dead, and they died in the most horrific way. Young people happily celebrating life in the hopes of a new year one moment, burning and dying and grieving and crying the next. And all of it raises the inevitable question, how did this happen? In this analysis, we're going to look at 5 shockers that led to the perfect firestorm, starting with number 1, fire. I think it's fair to say that if you take the sparklers out of the equation and leave everything else in place, everything exactly the same, none of this would have happened. Sparklers themselves, as pyrotechnics go, aren't particularly dangerous. I don't know about you, but we used to have them as kids in restaurants on birthdays. I know when I was in America, I saw some restaurants use that as well. I think Outback Restaurant being one of them. Now, it seems based on their own marketing, sparklers were sort of trademark of Le Constellation, as you can see in this promotional video. In this case, what was highly unusual was some waitress holding the damn things aloft while parading on the shoulders of a waiter, and this meant the sparklers could reach the flammable material on the ceiling, a sound dampening foam many YouTubers will be familiar with. I mean, this stuff is like solid gasoline. You want to keep flames away from it. And the fact that it was not just sparklers, but someone standing on or sitting on the shoulders of someone else and then raising their hands up meant it was the perfect storm for, lighting that flammable ceiling. And once that foam ignited, well, all bets were off. In some of the footage where you see kids filming the foam catching alight while still dancing, it starts melting and dripping on those below. I mean, did they dumbly think this was part of the effect?
What did you think was going to happen?
And I think this drawing depicting the sinking of the Titanic, can you imagine if someone had done that at the time? You're busy dying, basically. Your survival instinct should be kicking in, and yet what are you doing? You're filming what is going on. And this is something that I think has just really caught the imagination of everyone around the world, just how crazy some of that behavior was. And I don't think it's just pointing the finger at others. I think a lot of us do the same thing. I was in the gym the other day, couldn't quite understand what someone was doing until I realized they were photographing a shake inside the gym. And a lot of that kind of thing is going on. Anyway, number 2, time. I don't think the revelry would have been as intense, as extreme at another time of the year as New Year's, but besides that, I think the age of the revelers is of concern. Most of the 40 dead were 15 to 26 years old. As far as I know, 2 of the deceased were minors, but a significant number appeared to be underage. This immaturity and naivete was both the reason someone did something dumb, but also the failure of the group to realize something dumb was happening and to then take the appropriate action. Now, you might say, what is the appropriate action? Well, I would say for starters, turn off the music, stop serving drinks. Being young and under the influence didn't improve IQs either. Number 3, design layout. It's clear that the layer constellation was designed in such a way to muffle the noise, basically to trap the noise underground in a kind of bunker. The trouble is, once fire is added to the situation, it quickly led to the young patrons being trapped themselves because the exit for them was also the direction the fire needed to go to breathe. And you can sort of get that sense from this particular graphic from CNN. The red carpeted stairway out of the basement, well, this would also be the same route the fire would need to take to sustain itself. So if you were unfortunate to be in the restroom at the time or at the very back of the basement restaurant with the exit stairway on the far side, you were really going to have your work cut out for you in order to get out there, especially when the fire spread, which it did suddenly, and all the oxygen was sucked out of the room. So when you see them dancing under that fire, precious seconds are going by, and the fact that some people are remaining behind, that is creating a perfect storm for, there's going to be a stampede and people are going to get jammed. Whereas if they had left from the beginning, they could have done so to some extent in an orderly fashion. Now, imagine this. Imagine being in a room full of people. Imagine this. You're in a room full of people underground and suddenly none of you can breathe. And not only can you suddenly not breathe, you can't really see either. And there's only one exit. And that exit is upstairs. And even once you're through there, you've got to go through another series of obstacles. And all of this with fire dripping on you from above. And there are people that are starting to catch fire around you. Now, what also aggravated matters was the fact that the exit door jammed that night. Number 4, soundproofing. It's also fair to say that none of this would have been possible if there was no soundproofing inside. Number 5, stampede. The tragedy is that there was even one death, let alone 40. It's such a great tragedy because it was all so easily preventable and foreseeable as well. As soon as naivete gave way to full-blown panic, fates were sealed. The fire didn't kill as much people as people squashing each other, asphyxiating each other, crushing each other by pushing and trampling one another in a confined space, and that effectively trapped one another.
On avait des amis là-bas et moi je la forçais parce que j'avais juste trop besoin d'aller aux toilettes et on est descendu et on a vu le feu et on est directement remonté et j'ai pris le bras de mon ami mais après j'ai monté les escaliers et je l'ai lâché et là il me répond plus.
According to the New York Times, Nesta Fisher left Lake Constellation Bar before midnight on Wednesday night, finding it too quiet for a New Year's celebration. That was a decision that saved his life. When Mr. Fisher, 17, rejoined the line outside the bar's veranda, roughly 90 minutes later, he hoped to find it a little livelier. Instead, he heard the sound of screams inside and he saw smoke seeping from the doors. Moments later, the smoke had turned into a full-on blaze. It was a furnace. I saw people falling inside the veranda. Because of the lack of oxygen, they were fainting. People were screaming. So that was a big thing. The fire was actually not just harming people, but it was also sucking out the oxygen, causing people to pass out because they couldn't breathe. His rescue instincts then kicked in. With 2 other people, Fisher desperately tried to force open a glass door on the right-hand side of the bar. It was stuck, he said. We tried to break it with a stool. We tried hitting the window, but it wouldn't open. Then I just ripped it off. And that was a decision that likely saved lives, since it created an alternative escape route. Using phone flashlights, Mr. Fisher and other bystanders tried to guide the crowds within to safety outside. As they emerged, he said, victims were completely disfigured. Some had no hair, some were completely burned. We could only see terror in their eyes. Now, one thing you'll also notice is on the outside, people were also filming while people were trapped and stuck in that doorway. And what you could really have done there was, on the outside, stop filming, go and help open up that jammed exit doorway. Now, when the fire first started, there was actually a lot of time to clear the room if they had reacted rationally and intelligently. As I said, they could have started by stopping the music. Each and every one who had their phones out filming once the sparklers came out, well, and that then led to the fire. Each and every one of those put their own and others' lives at risk. The sad reality is that plenty of lives were lost, not because of the fire, but as I say, because of the crush at the door, where consideration for one's fellow human being was reduced seemingly to zero. I do think this incident where you have a kind of runaway catastrophe, but by combining fairly harmless elements, is something we need to consider in our lives, whether it's while driving a car, whether it's dealing with foods we typically eat, just on a global scale. I think what we can see here is when it's too late to realize something is wrong, it really is too late. And how many are smart enough and able to think critically to recognize when things are starting to unravel in real time? Can we see that? And the answer is not enough of us. And that is why critical thinking is so necessary. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. I do want to share with you an interesting story where one of Brian Koberger's sisters has broken her silence in an interview. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.